This is J.G. Hertzner. You're listening to NX 7062 Podcast.
Welcome. You are listening to the NX 7062 Podcast. Hello. I hope everybody had an awesome weekend. I didn't do much of anything except yesterday. We did share, or I moderated, let's try and get this right. I moderated a panel for Lambda Quadrant, which you can catch over on the Lambda Quadrant YouTube channel. It was about Queer Trek, what our members are looking forward to. It was with me, Callie Wright, and my guest for next week, the incredible Melissa Longo, and we chatted about LGBTQ representation from TOS, where it wasn't, all the way up through and including lower decks. So it was a really interesting, in-depth discussion, and as everybody knows, I figured out a way to work in Enterprise, and actually it wasn't that difficult. So we did work in some stuff about Enterprise, and Callie actually has finally come around to the light side and realized that Enterprise is not as bad as a lot of people thought. Also, I want everybody to notice I am modeling this. I'm not sure I've worn this on the show yet. You might have seen some pictures, but I got this. I originally bought this back in 2018. Yeah, it's 2018 into 2019. It was a present for my parents, but it was from China, I think, or somewhere over in Asia, and I wanted it for the cruise, and it did not arrive in time. So now I only take it on special occasions, like when I travel to Vegas. Yeah, I know Vegas is desert, but it never hurts to have a windbreaker, especially when you're on the plane. Hey, Kim, what is up? I got the notification recently. How's there? Hear you say the last 8 seconds. Oh, well, definitely. Definitely. Please. What is this? Have I been bombed? What is this? That's interesting. Hey, Robert, how are you? Anybody that's on YouTube, Faith, I know you can't see this, but look at this. I'm actually getting bombed on YouTube. That's the first time that's ever happened. So, blocking the user. Bye. All right. Hey, Domestic, how are you? Okay, so now my YouTube friends won't have to see those weird YouTube comments from that naked thing. I have no idea what it is. Yeah, Faith, please go catch the Lambda Quadrant. It is on the Lambda Quadrant channel, and it was a lot of fun. I love it when I get to do some stuff outside of just my weekly little thing, and I like moderating. Moderating is fun. Robert was at Rhode Island Comic-Con this week. Was it this weekend or last weekend? It was last weekend. It was the first weekend in November, I think. And yes, in fact, yeah, I know it was. Sorry, just doing math in my calendar, math in my head. And I know you have some pictures you want to share with us, Robert. If you want to post them on the NX 7062 Facebook page, feel free. If you want to send them to me, I will post them. Either way, whatever you feel like doing, please feel free to share them with everybody. I'm sorry we couldn't connect earlier, or I would have had some to share tonight. Yep. That's what I thought. It was not this past weekend. It was the weekend before. But you were dressed as an Andorian, so really looking forward to seeing those pictures. What is going on in the Star Trek universe? Well, let's see. Still enjoying Prodigy. It's technically, episode 4, because they did the double in the beginning. Its last episode before its little winter break is coming up this Thursday, so we're getting double Trek on Thursday because we've got Prodigy and Discovery coming out this Thursday. Really enjoying Prodigy, even though yes, it is made for kids, but who cares? It's Star Trek and it's fun. Let's see what else is going on. STLV is still ahead of. Oh, great, Robert. Okay, thank you. I will post them on the Facebook page. It's awesome. Can't wait to see them. Yes, double check. Absolutely, double check. STLV, which I actually saw an email from Creation, and they are going back to that hashtag, as opposed to the hashtag whatever year mission it is, which never really caught on. But they're still ahead in the guest game, as far as I know. Mission New York, it's in April, and 6 guests. Come on, guys, let's get with it. And in case you haven't noticed, I do have a little visitor. I don't want to disturb him too much because right now he is not clawing the shit out of me, which has been something he's been doing lately. Podcat's on my lap. He's not on the back of the chair. I think he figured out that you can't see him now with the way that I have this set up. You can't see him now, so he's just hanging out on my lap. So there's an ear. There's an ear. Still after like a year and a half on YouTube, still getting the directions right. Screwed up. So what do we want to talk about tonight? We want to talk about Discovery. I have to tell you, I did a post for Lambda Quadrant announcing that they're going to be using Tig Notaro as much as they can. Tig had bowed out of there he is. Tig had bowed out of going to Toronto when they first started filming after COVID, which is, there's nothing wrong with being safe and being careful and doing things that are only inside your comfort zone. So Tig didn't get to go up to Toronto for filming until May, which was the tail end of everything. And they used her as much as they possibly could because they all know how much people love Jet Reno. So that post for Lambda Quadrant is our most successful post. And in fact, if you haven't already, head over to Lambda Quadrant on Twitter and just go like it. Because it's gonna, if it only needs a couple more likes and we'll hit 1,000 likes for the first time. And it would help me out since I do their social media and I'd have bragging rights. But it seems that's what a lot of people are excited about. And of course, there are a lot of people that had to be doomsday, well, not doomsday, but just kind of, the only good news about Discovery is when it gets canceled. You know what? If you don't like Discovery, that's okay. But why are you harshing everybody else's buzz that is so incredibly excited about Discovery and specifically about Tig, who is a fan favorite? Probably right up there with Grudge because, you gotta love the cat. Gotta love the queen. So there will be spoilers in this episode because we're going to be talking about the first 3 seasons of Discovery. And it did. It came into mixed reviews. Not everybody was enthusiastic. A lot of people had problems with the Klingons and that whole how they changed the look of the Klingons again. As am I, absolutely. But they did. They changed the look of the Klingons again. They did an evolution from TOS, and then you had Enterprise that explained why they look different between TOS and TNG, and actually TOS to Star Trek the Motion Picture, and then ahead to TNG and everything else. And then again, they looked different in Discovery. But, people were arguing, well, maybe that's part of the side effects of what happened in Enterprise. There are the 24 houses, I think, and nobody knows that everybody assumes they all look the same. So, if you like Trek, I'll always support that it exists. Because there are people called gatekeepers, Faith, and there are just people that have to be negative, people that don't feel like Discovery is true Trek or the Kelvin timeline is true Trek. And it's the internet, so people feel like they can make negative comments even when, they're bringing, everybody else down. I'm serious. We have like 990 some likes and maybe 3 of them were negative comments and maybe 4 or 5 people liked those negative comments. So, that's still a really good positive percentage for Tig and for the show. But, people are going to be assholes, basically, especially on the internet. So it was disappointing. That tweet actually went a pretty good distance before people started coming in with the negative comments. So I was just happy that, 99% of it was negative for a while. If you keep this up, Podcat, you can't stay. You got to pick your spot. Pick your spot. And don't claw the shit out of me. That's all I ask. I think that's pretty simple. So for those of you, that's okay. No worries, domestic. We appreciate the like. So what are we looking for? Listen, that domestic, that is inching us up towards 1,000. So it's fine. So thank you so much. So let's start at the very beginning, because that is a very fine place to start. So we're going to start with The Vulcan Hello, the premiere episode of Star Trek Discovery. And no, I did not change my background. I still will always go NX01, just in case anybody's wondering. So we already talked about, the one thing that people completely reacted to was, why do the Klingons look differently? The one thing I reacted to, and I will tell you, this is the one thing that disappointed me about The Vulcan Hello. That really cool warrior Klingon spacesuit with all the spikes in it. I saw that when I was when I worked. It was the first year I went to STLV, so it was 2017, and CBS had an entire Discovery exhibit at STLV. I don't know if any of you guys were there, in one of the back rooms, and I actually was asked to monitor the room, like kind of help get people through the lines and tell them where to go in, and help them get their pictures, because you got a picture at the captain's chair, the back of the room, and that suit was there, and it was $250,000 worth of suit. That suit, all the individual spikes, everything else, that suit was about $250,000, which is, I think, more than I paid for my house, to be perfectly honest. And it's standing there, and somebody tried to touch it, and I said, could you please not touch that? They made some comment, oh, look, it's all 3D printed. I said, could you please not touch it? And he made some comment. I said, it's a $250,000 prop. Could we move along? And then it had, $250,000, and it had that one scene. And we never saw it again. So, yeah, see, it's amazing what television budget, hell, $250,000 was probably more than they spent on a single season of TOS. Seriously. Come on. For prop-wise, not maybe for the whole thing, but yeah. So I was really disappointed that came and went. What catches you, at least for me, when it started, was that Michael is the main protagonist, and she's not perfect. The first thing she does is basically get her captain killed. And then she has to, pay for her insubordination, and she goes to prison. And it's like, and this is the person. This is our person that is supposed to be leading us through disco. And she's not perfect. And I loved that. I absolutely loved that. I thought that was like the best thing was, and again, back to my whole love of Enterprise, where it's all raw and different and not perfect, and not everybody's a polished Starfleet officer. Right out of the gate, Michael is struggling. She's struggling with being human, but being brought up by Vulcans, and that perfect, what she felt that she had to live up to was that Vulcan view of perfection. The other thing I think we all struggled with when it started was, we're seeing the spore drive, and Michael Burnham is Spock's adopted sister, and this predates TOS. So we kind of had to wait to the end of the second season for them to kind of explain why it was never mentioned in the TOS universe. Which again, it's a lot like Enterprise. Enterprise was able to sneak some stuff in. They predated TOS, but they snuck in TOS stuff and TNG stuff in this way where you could understand why it happened in Enterprise, but it was never mentioned in subsequent episodes. She's not perfect. She's not even likable. Yes, this is true. The most likable thing about her is Tilly. Tilly's amazing. Tilly, our very first, I think, female lead type character that is not a size 2 and won't be walking around in a scant. And that took them a very long time to get there too. And a lot of people love Tilly's a great character. I love Tilly. Her energy. There's this not almost naivete about her that I really like, and this hopefulness that I really like. So as a character, I think she's brilliantly done, and her Mirror Universe counterpart is awesome, and played so well by Mary Wiseman. But the fact that she's, she's got a regular body, a body like I have, or a body like a lot of women have, I think was hugely important and very well done. I don't know. Well, yeah, but see, the difference is Doll is a teenager and not in Starfleet. So yeah, she's more perfect than Doll, but that's apples and oranges. That's absolutely apples and oranges. And I like them both for very different reasons. Definitely grows into it, although season 3 got me. My hopes are high for season 4. Yeah, Burnham finally really does. I think she finds herself in season 3. I think 1 and 2 were just a big search, and you mixed it up when you threw her in with Spock in season 2. That was definitely part of a journey that she was still going on. Of course, Stamets and Kubler were a big thing, and their little toothbrush episode, their little toothbrush scene, which just kind of was like, hey, this is normal. This is we all learned that couples served on ships. They taught us that in TNG. This was a science vessel, not an exploratory vessel. They were a couple. They were serving together, and oh look, they just happened to be 2 men, and that was just wonderfully done and wonderfully played. And if you want to hear more about that, again, go check out the Lambda Quadrant video. I accidentally said toothbrush sharing episode when I just meant toothbrush, or toothbrush sharing scene when I meant just toothbrush scene. And I think some people were a little offended. I don't have a problem with couples sharing a toothbrush. I don't think, I'm not saying on a regular basis, but I'm just saying if one day you're with your significant other and your toothbrush fell on the floor or fell in the toilet and there was no other toothbrush in the house, why wouldn't you ask your significant other who you are in a relationship with if you could borrow their toothbrush for one night? So that sparked a whole side conversation about who thought that was okay and who thought it wasn't. Awkwardly human. Yeah, she was definitely awkwardly human. And going back to Burnham, she was very awkward because she was raised as a Vulcan, and I love that. And the first time that I ever met Sonequa and had a chance to talk to her, I told her that. I told her that I thought her portrayal of a human who was raised by Vulcans was so perfect because it tortured her, I think is a good word. She was very conflicted about it. And I thought that she played that so well. The other thing I liked about Discovery is all the mirror universe stuff, because we all know I am a huge mirror universe person, and the fact that they've kind of mainstreamed the mirror universe I thought was fantastic. And then you get to find out how these people are crossing in and out of the mirror universe. The whole Lorca thing was great. Mirror Georgiou was a fabulous character. I don't know how they're going to bring her back in Section 31, because I thought that was the whole point of doing that, but now they had to send her back to her own universe because she was having issues, unless somebody figures it out in the other universe. I don't know. But I would love to see her, Georgiou, come back. Books, love books. According to the book, Grace Lee Whitney suggested the scant dress in order to show off her legs. That is entirely possible. Yeoman Rand, you really couldn't sneeze at her legs, could you? And I mean, that scant went on, made its way onto TNG. In fact, for anybody that's watched Encounter at Farpoint, they actually put a twist on it. They had a guy wearing the scant in, pretty sure it was when they were talking about separating the saucer section, and they're moving people around. At one point, like just, quick stepping down the hallway, there was a guy in a scant. But I think, season 1 was tough. Again, a lot of people had issues. There are always going to be issues because there are people that will never get over the fact that just because something on the Star Trek timeline predates TOS, like Enterprise and Discovery, does not mean that they have to make the sets look like something out of the 1950s. Because so many people argue, well, it looks more sophisticated than the Enterprise did in the original. Well, duh, there's a big difference between the 2000s and 1966. So was it the correct time period? Or I thought they had to set, was it time or was it mirror? I thought they sent her back to her own universe. All right, if it's the correct time period, then no. She's in the right time period. She's in the right time period. She's in, oh no, wait. Okay. No, that's right, because they're 900 years in the future. I thought they sent her back to the mirror universe too. I thought they had to send her all the way back. All right, cool. Then if she's in the, if all they did was send her back to the right time, and they didn't have to send her back to her own universe, then cool beans. Then I guess we're going to get Section 31. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, for some reason I thought she was just gone. Thank you for that, Robert. I appreciate that. But that was the other thing that I loved about the first 2 seasons of Discovery, was that the only show that they could out and out reference was Enterprise. And then Captain Pike. They obviously, Spock and Pike, they could bring in because that was on the same timeline as Discovery. But the only TV show they could reference was really Enterprise, which I obviously did not think they did enough of, because it was only really twice. There was an entry that Saru looked up that said Jonathan Archer was one of the top captains of his time. And then the big speech in the last episode. They said, what's her name said something about, just like when Jonathan Archer in the first crew of the Enterprise. Something I wish I did meld better. I wish it looked like a seamless timeline, but I'm also not a child. I understand why it's like that. And I know people wouldn't watch it if it looked the same quality as that. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Nobody would watch it. It's the same thing with Doctor Who. I mean, everybody loves Doctor Who, and Doctor Who's been going on for 50 years. So his look's going to change according to, the times. So yeah, the Daleks had to be upgraded. The Cybermen all had to be upgraded. It's the same thing. Nobody's going to watch a show that looks like it came out of the 70s. So they just kind of scale back the tech. It's like they didn't have, they had a chef on the Enterprise, as opposed to just like that whole replicator thing with the little squares. Yeah, but people will always say that. But at least by the end of the second season, we know why they didn't talk about spore drives in subsequent tracks, is because nobody was supposed to know. It went into the future, and that was the end of that. The other thing we all learned is that different ships get different uniforms, which I thought was really interesting. Because when the Enterprise finally showed up at the very end of season 1 and then into season 2, they all had those primary color uniforms because they were an exploration vessel, as opposed to the Discovery being a science vessel. So different vessels, different, and nobody ran around with t-shirts that said disco on the front. You actually can get them now that say enter. So I saw them in Vegas, and I should have gotten one before I left, and I didn't. It said enter on the front, which I was like, well, I definitely need one of those. But when we move into season 2, we get not only do we get Spock and Pike, which is a great tie-in, and as we all know, leading into Strange New Worlds. But we got what a lot of people say killed Enterprise, was this overreaching story arc that took up the entire season, which was the Red Angel story arc, which I will admit was a little confusing to me at times. It was kind of really hard, and there was a lot of time jumping, and the whole thing with Spock being a kid, and I liked the insight into Michael growing up with Spock. I loved watching that relationship develop, and you got to see them as kids, and then you get to see them fighting as adults, and it's really that relationship. I loved the relationship between Burnham and Spock. The Red Angel thing got really confusing, and I think they enjoyed maybe putting Spock in jeopardy. Like, oh, did you know that before he was on Kirk's Enterprise, people thought he was crazy? I thought that was a kind of interesting way to go. I love, of course, I was a huge fan of the fact that they have this whole Section 31 thing going on. Obviously, again, they introduced it in Enterprise. We knew that Section 31 has been a word that predated TOS. They just never talked about it. And why would they? It's a secret. So they had that going for them. Did not enjoy Red Angel. Season 1 to 2 on the whole was just tough. Yeah, there were a lot of growing pains. But it's Star Trek. And sometimes, yeah. The one of the things that I love, and sometimes it can be a slog. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't watch TOS because they think it's a slog. So I completely get that. I loved how they went back and visited Talos 4. I love how we got a different glimpse at Pike's one and only adventure, one and only Trek adventure, The Cage, and also the Menagerie. That is entirely possible. Again, back to that's how I feel about old Doctor Who that I could never get into until I got into New Who. So yeah, that's entirely possible. There's very little. I mean, I rewatch Enterprise. I'm supposed to be rewatching DS9. I kind of stalled out in season 2. We all know how I feel about Voyager. And honestly, there's very little TNG that I'll rewatch. Like, I don't purposely sit down. BBC America runs TNG ad nauseum, as well as DS9 ad nauseum. And chances are, if you turn on BBC America, you'll catch one of them. And if it's a TNG episode that I'm fond of, I'll stop. But if I'm clicking around looking for something to watch, streaming TNG just never really pops into my head. There's just other stuff that I would love to click around and find. TNG isn't something that I would sit around and rewatch, unless obviously it's for the show. If there's ever a topic that I'm going to talk about on the show and I have a specific reason, but just as something fun to rewatch, no. Enterprise honestly is really the only one that I consciously rewatch, and I really do need to get back on my DS9 rewatch because, like I said, I stalled out in season 2. The other cool thing about season 2, though, is when they introduced Jet Reno, who, as I mentioned earlier, is a huge fan favorite. She's snarky. Somebody at the Lambda Quadrant Post compared her to Dr. McCoy, if Dr. McCoy was an engineer, because she's got that salty personality. Face heart lies with the Deep Space Nine. But her relationship with Stamets is kind of reminiscent has that shade of the Kirk and McCoy, where you can tell that there's an underlying respect, but they keep butting heads. Yes, it was. Enterprise was not the first. DS9 was really the first. There was a whole storyline with Bashir that kind of introduced Deep Space Nine. They were trying to recruit him, and he said no. And there was a sketchy Section 31 guy that abducted him and did all this stuff. And again, I am really behind on my Deep Space Nine. Faith would know this better than I would. But Enterprise, again, A, Enterprise, B, was a complete Malcolm Reed storyline that played out in the 2-part Divergence and Affliction, and I never remember which of those episodes is first. Sloan, thank you. Thank you, Sloan. Like I said, I'm not that far into my Deep Space Nine rewatch, but I remember catching the one with Bashir, the one with O'Brien. Was it one or two? There was two. There was one where Sloan faked his death. I just saw that one not that long ago. But Eric Pierpoint was the head of Deep Space Nine back when it was on Enterprise. And Divergence and Affliction, which was actually the episodes that explained why the Klingons looked the way they did between TOS and the redo. I always thought that was a great episode, and that was great. I think now we're just talking about alternate things like Section 31. Okay, there were several episodes in DS9. There was the two-parter. There was the two-parter in Enterprise, and then at the end, Terra Prime and what the hell's the name of the second episode? God damn it. Oh, the first one. Demons and Terra Prime, the two before the last episode of Enterprise. Malcolm, it's not really a Section 31 episode, but Eric Pierpoint comes back because they need some information that only somebody who worked for Section 31 had. Again, I just can't wait for the Section 31 series because I think Section 31 is just such a great covert. And again, because it's not pretty. It's basically saying, well, Starfleet's pretty face needs this down and dirty section, doing all the stuff, undercover, so Starfleet can continue to look pretty. Yeah, Tig is an acquired taste. I happen to enjoy snarky sarcasm, so I loved her the minute that I met her. And I loved the way she would come at Stamets. I thought, watching him get all bent out of shape was amazing. But so, she went with them into the future. And let's see. So we're in the future. In Section 31, in Section 3. In Season 3, we moved into the future. So now they don't just have to reference Enterprise, they can reference all of them. Deep Space Nine reference the junkyard, where they were looking for parts. Somebody mentioned self-stealing stem bolts. So there's a Deep Space Nine reference. They found a phaser, I think. A TNG phaser in the same junkyard. So now, and they're all talking about how this stuff's antique, which I love. Let's see. Excited for that one too, but I wish this Deep Space Nine were their prequel. Well, let's see. Enjoy Tig. She's so deliciously weird. That is a great way to describe her. Yeah, no, she's great. Yeah, I don't know. I guess if they had to send Georgiou back to her own time, then I guess, yeah, we're looking at pre-DS9, post-Enterprise. But, Eric Pierpoint could still be around, like a really, 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 really old guy. Yes, the Nog starship was awesome. Hey, Travis, how are you? Thanks so much for stopping by. Nog starship did not get enough screen time, and there better be more of it in Season 4. Just saying. What I love is that even though that they can reference all the other Star Treks, I'm pretty sure the first reference to another show was still an Enterprise reference, because when they finally find the Federation and that AI is questioning Georgiou, and she's sitting there, she said, "Oh, April 4th for all you guys. It's so fun. It's first contact. You love it." And then she goes, "It's a holiday for us too. It's when we defeated the Vulcans." And that is straight out of In a Mirror Darkly, which, again, 4th-season Enterprise, if anybody watches, the coolest thing about those two episodes is that they're completely mirror universe, and they change the theme around, and the opening of the first episode before they run the credits is a redo of the end of First Contact. And instead of shaking hands with the Vulcans, Zefram Cochrane pulls out a gun and shoots the Vulcans, and they take over the ship. And that's how the Mirror Universe and the Terran Empire got started out with their warp and their information, is they didn't learn from the Vulcans. They stole it all. Yeah, I don't know why there was a Nog, and then there was a Voyager. There was a Voyager, which I was like, out of all the ships, I guess, I don't know. But yeah, there was a Nog. So let's see. Oh, yes. The other thing that I like about the future was the whole Orion Syndicate thing. And it's being run by a woman. And again, see, look, we all learned in Enterprise. The Orion women ran everything. Back in Enterprise's day, the men were just a front. But obviously, flash forward 900 plus years, the women don't need fronts anymore, and now the woman that runs the entire Orion Syndicate is a woman. Well, hi, Jean. Thank you so much for joining us. Love new faces. I absolutely love new faces, so that's great. Thanks for hanging out with us. So awesome. Let's see, what else are we talking about with season 3? I think the one thing that I like most about season 3 is sort of like the Federation fell. I mean, it was able to kind of put itself back together, but I like the fact that they're showing that nothing is infallible. The Federation, just because we all think it's great, in our century, does not mean that it's going to stand the test of time. And it was an amazing ideal. It's still an amazing ideal, and obviously people still live by that ideal where they are, but it's just, shit happens. And the ideal exists, and they're trying to rebuild based on that ideal. But you know what? Let's see. Hold on. When we get there, I have questions about Prodigy. Go ahead and ask the questions. Go ahead and ask the question about Prodigy, because this is all disco. So, okay. So let's see. So Star Trek. I know a few things. Not much about Discovery, though. That's okay. We welcome everybody. Star Trek Discovery is available. This is my commercial. It's available on Paramount Plus if you have Paramount Plus. I think you can also buy at least the first 2 seasons on DVD. It's a fabulous show. It's an absolutely fabulous show, according to me and pretty much everybody that's hanging in the chats. But it's there are also people that hate it just because it's not classic Star Trek. It's not like the rest of Star Trek, but then people hated Enterprise because it wasn't like everything that came before it. People hated Deep Space Nine because it's Star Trek, not Star Stand Still. But then everybody ended up loving it eventually. I think a lot of time. Yeah, Faith, you can save them. Absolutely. I can't answer questions about Lambda Quadrant because these are things that we haven't decided on yet. We're still having scheduling issues. So I can't tell you when there's going to be another game night. I can tell you Melissa's going to be here with me next week. I believe she's watching Prodigy too. So if you have a Prodigy question, you want to save it for next week, Melissa and I are going to be talking about a bunch of stuff. So Prodigy can definitely fit into that. Oh, okay. Let's see what Jean has to say. I've seen it. I just didn't get into it as much as the other series. Yeah, because it's different. Because it's Discovery, and depending on how, it just depends. It's funny. Kate Mulgrew was at STLV. Had to have been my first year again because that's the year I ended up working the auditorium. Faith, I will pass that on. That we know we all miss playing game nights too. It's just a matter of scheduling right now. And I will pass that on to the rest of the team. Now that I just lost my... Okay, so Kate Mulgrew. We're at a Star Trek convention, and I admit I do this a lot. If there's an actor that I like from some show and they end up on another show, of course I'm going to give that show a go. And somebody asked Kate Mulgrew, they said, you're in Orange is the New Black. And I watched a couple episodes and I didn't like it. Help me like it, or something along those lines. Like, help me like it. Give me a reason to keep watching it. And Kate came out and said, listen, I appreciate you giving it a try. Obviously you're a Voyager fan. You're at a Star Trek convention. You're talking to her. But she said, it's just another project. You don't have to like it. She appreciated the effort, but you don't have to like it. And that's how, you have to feel about all Star Trek. You're a Star Trek fan, and hi, Reed. Star Trek fan, and that's great. That doesn't mean that you have to like all of it. You're allowed to be a fan, and if some of it doesn't speak to you, that's okay. Travis, let's see. I liked, I forget his name, got up every day and said his post. Yes, Yes, that was so sweet. That made me cry, and I don't remember his name either. But I suck with names. Okay. Gene, I will absolutely, because you joined us late. We actually already discussed this, but I am more than happy to go back and discuss this again. That is a challenge that a lot of people have. And it's not that they're newer per se. It's that it's the 2000s compared to 1966. I've always said this. If Gene Roddenberry had the technology of the 2000s, so that if he could make the Enterprise in 1966 look like the Enterprise that we all saw on Discovery in season 2, he would have done it in a heartbeat. He couldn't. It was literally impossible. So yes, the ships are going to look newer. And Discovery was actually pretty much an experimental with the spore drive and everything. It was experimental, and they explained, you kind of figured out why you never hear about the Discovery in subsequent episodes if you watched to the end of season 2. But it's not that they look new. I mean, they do look newer. They look newer because the technology is there to make the ships look better. Enterprise had the same problem. The ship's supposed to predate the NCC 1701 by almost 100 years. And it still, to a lot of people, looked better than Kirk's ship. And let's be honest, it does. It looks better than Kirk's ship. But again, that's what you can accomplish on television in 2000 is way different than what you can accomplish in television in 1966. So, Gene, I totally understand. You are not the only person that has had that issue. But the challenge had become, if you make it look older than the NCC 1701 from 1966, people aren't going to watch it because they're going to say, well, why aren't you making it? It's like, you have the technology. Why aren't you using it? So that's kind of where that's my opinion. I mean, that's where I'm at. That's where a lot of people are at. But again, Gene, you are not alone. There are a lot of people that feel the same way. It was just too much for me to watch even by myself. All right. I'm going to hate myself for asking this, and I'm going to feel like I should know it, but what is OITNB? And there's the Klingon look while I'm at it. Yep. Again, you are not alone in that one either. There's a lot of people that had issues with the Klingons, and there are some theories. I haven't decided which one I subscribe to yet. The theory that there are 24 houses, nobody ever said all of the houses looked alike. Theories about how Enterprise explained that there was a virus that made Klingons look like the humans that everybody knew from the original series. That maybe their look had something to do with a mutation in that virus. But they've never explained it. And that's what drives people crazy, is that nobody has sat down and said, this is why they look the way they do. There's just a bunch of fan theories that are going around. Oh, thank you. Yeah, see, I don't watch it. That's why I didn't know. I didn't even bother to start. With it. Orange is the New Black. That's why I didn't know what that's for. That is my favorite ship as well. And guess what I found out? Just as a complete aside, because anybody that knows anything about this podcast knows that I'm more about going off on tangents than sticking to the topics. Two things, actually. I did background work on Orange is the New Black with my car. I have no idea if it ever showed up. But that's the only thing I can tell you about Orange is the New Black, is that I got paid to show up and sit in my car for a day. Somewhere, I think, in Queens. I just saw that you can get the model of the Enterprise, I think, J, which is the one from the 3rd season of Enterprise. It's the Enterprise that Daniels took Archer to try and talk him out of sacrificing himself to destroy the Xindi weapon. I'm pretty sure it's J. And there's actually an Eagle Moss. There's a model of it. And I thought, I need that model in my life because it's really, really sharp. Really, really sharp. The refit from motion picture. 62, so I saw the original series. There you go. So obviously, Gene, I completely respect why the newness of everything in Discovery and everything doesn't feel like canon. I can completely respect that. The refit from the movie. Okay, I will tell you this. I watched the original motion picture a few times in my life. Did I see that in the theater? I might have actually seen it in the theater for its original release. I can't be 100% sure because that was a long time ago. I was around and I was movie going age. I just don't remember if that's the first time I saw it. All I remember about that Enterprise is the 20 minutes it took them to fly around it in the shuttle, just because, But, I just rewatched it. It was on TV a month or so ago, and I had nothing else going on, and I sat down and rewatched most of it. The one thing I will say that I learned about Star Trek the Motion Picture is that this actually, I think this answers the whole thing about the newness and would Gene Roddenberry, if he could? Yes! Because he now had a movie budget and a better special effects team and more money to work with. And 90% of the special effects, I think, in that movie, and the scenes like Spock flying into the heart of Voyager in the suit, and all the colors and that was all just because they could. Because honestly, I could have done without a lot of it. Just because I'm very story driven, and all the cool special effectsy, just because we can, and who doesn't this look pretty, doesn't do it for me. I just want the story to keep going. And yeah, I get it. Spock's going from point A to point B. He could have gotten there a lot faster, but we've got budgets. We've got things we can do now that we couldn't on the show. So yeah, if Gene could have made his stuff look different, he absolutely would, which is why, I'm willing to accept that this ship predates the show. All the Discovery ships predate the NCC 1701, and it's okay. Let's see. Cried when I saw it the first time, Jerry Goldsmith. Yes, the soundtrack absolutely makes the movie. I saw every Star Trek movie in the theater opening night. I can guarantee that I've seen every Star Trek movie from 2 on in the theaters. I just can't put my finger on, because I would have had, I was a kid, I would have had to have somebody take me. So, my parents liked Star Trek. I just don't know if they liked it. And I remember my parents took me to see Star Wars. So my guess is they would have taken me to see Star Trek. So I'm going to say that I would have seen all of them in the theaters. The one I remember most was Star Trek 4 because I went on a date. And I actually did go see Star Trek 4 again on August 19th when they re-released it in the theaters for its 35th anniversary. That was awesome. Let's see. I love the Fly Dry Dock. Grew up with TNG, but I get watery-eyed when the show, the Enterprise in the motion picture. Like I said, as an original fan, somebody that grew up watching the series, again, that was, way in my youth. But as somebody who was an adult who watched the series, and then only got those 3 seasons, and then a bunch of reruns, and then a cartoon, and then all of a sudden you get everybody's back, and they're doing this incredibly epic motion picture. I can understand that, and I know that that's why they did that. They did that as something warm and wonderful, and something that they knew all the fans would want to see. If you're sitting in a theater for the first time, getting to see a new adventure for the crew, and getting back something that you hadn't had. And I can completely understand that, and I can completely respect that. It's just, for me personally, it's like, could we just get on the ship? That's me. But like I said, let's see. My parents went to see 5 when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed to see them till the VHS came out. Of course, 4 is where my little girl heart. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes and no. I think there were a lot of scripts for that. There was one where they were supposed to meet God, which got turned around and mangled and turned into Star Trek Five. Um, there's definitely shades of the Changeling and Nomad, but I think it was kind of what Nomad should have been. I never liked the Changeling. I never liked that episode. I think it's just basically because the way like Kirk just threw, like, I forget what he said to Nomad, but it was so ridiculous, and Nomad just like cannot compute, and blew up. Oh well, there you go. I have never cosplayed to a movie. I have never cosplayed to a movie. I've worn T-shirts. I got a Dick Tracy. I actually got a Dick Tracy T-shirt that was my ticket to the theater. I don't remember right, but if you bought this T-shirt in advance of the movie, and then the T-shirt sort of had like a printed ticket on it, that was your ticket to the movie. And I've gone to see Star Wars movies. I'm worn Star Wars T-shirts. My big thing actually now, I will tell you, is to go see Marvel movies and wear my Superman shirt. I like wearing DC shit to go see Marvel. That's just my little inside joke. Let's see. So, what's your favorite episode of all the different series? You're asking me to list favorite episodes of all the series? Amok Time for TOS. TNG, The Perfect Mate, I think, ranks up there because I love Tim O'Connor from his Buck Rogers days and the whole I Am For You, Orca Volt, the whole storyline. Deep Space Nine, I don't like Voyager. You're new, so the one thing you need to know about me, absolutely do not like Voyager. So that's, I don't have a Voyager. I don't have a favorite Voyager episode. Deep Space Nine would probably have to be the Q episode. And the Lwaxana episode. I love Lwaxana. So there's that. And then Enterprise, I have a list. My list for Enterprise is Silent Enemy, Minefield, In a Mirror Darkly 1 and 2, and probably Divergent and Affliction, just for the whole warp field thing where they have to flip over and share their warp field with Columbia, and Trip has to go on a cord between the two ships. So I think that pretty much covers all of my favorite episodes. Yeah, see, I thought there was more than one. The one with Odo where they're trapped in the turbo lift, was really amazing. I think that was some of Majel's best work as Lwaxana. I mean, anything Lwaxana on TNG, I loved. Anything Q on TNG, I loved. The Binar episode, 11001-001, because Carolyn McCormick was in Law and Order, and so I thought that was really good. Let's see what Gene likes. Best of Both Worlds, Duet, Eye of the Needle, Silent Enemy. I love Silent Enemy. Silent Enemy is one of my personal favorites. I haven't seen it, Faith. I don't remember the last time I saw it. Tell me what season it's in, and I'll tell you what the chances are I'm going to see it in the near future. I love the whole B story. I loved the whole thing with Malcolm and the cake, and the fact that Malcolm is allergic to pineapple and takes the shot so he can eat it anyway. I have an allergy. I have a pineapple allergy, so I always thought that was funny. And I eat it anyway because it's a very mild allergy and it's only fresh pineapple. But so I loved that. I'm like, oh look, Malcolm Reed and I have something in common. So I always thought that was so awesome. That and the whole blowing stuff up. And it was also one of the ones where he and Trip finally started to kind of click. Let's see. Duet is DS9, the actor who pretends to be Gaul. It is amazing. Okay. Again, I am somewhere. And this is the other thing that sucks, is that Paramount moved everything over to Paramount Plus off of Netflix, and my Netflix queue knew where I was with Deep Space Nine, and I didn't check it. I should have checked I should have checked where I was on DS9 before they moved it, because now I lost my place in my queue, so now I've got to go back and figure it out. But see, this is the fun of hanging out with me on my podcast. This whole podcast was supposed to be about Discovery. And we did. We talked about Discovery. I think we're all looking forward to season 4. Once again, there's a uniform change. Burgundy is now the color, and I am a fan of burgundy, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to more character development. Adira and Gray, I cannot wait to see where their story goes. That was so sweet. Adira was just such an amazing character, and her relationship with Stamets and Kubler was awesome. Muse is an S4, a good Serac episode too. Well, if it's a Serac episode, yeah. I love Jake. I love Serac, and I love Jake. I love that guy, them and their self-stealing stem bolts. And yes, that's another thing for anybody that doesn't know. I do sort of butt up against some of the seventh rule, but it's a happy little butting of heads. And I've chatted with Ryan about it. So that's another thing is, I am partial to Serac and Ryan because they are just two incredibly awesome people. Let's see. 7 of 9, lack of social skills, evolution. Yes. Yes. 7 of 9 that's the thing. I don't like Voyager, but I will tell you I like 7 of 9. I like Neelix. I thought he was a great character. I got a soft spot for Klingons, so I'll give you B'Elanna. Plus, Roxanne Dawson directed an episode of Enterprise. So, but and I'm sure Domestic, this, she's doing a lot more 7 of 9's doing a lot more character development now in Picard. So she's still growing and she's still evolving, and that's so cool to see where she's come since Voyager brought her home. I think, honestly, this is my humble opinion, I think every Star Trek fan should see every Star Trek at least once before they make their opinions, but that's me. I'm not sure you were here when I mentioned, I've reiterated, I am really far behind on my rewatch of DS9. I rewatched Enterprise, a gazillion times, and poor DS9's just been waiting previously in my Netflix queue. Now it'll be in my Prime Video queue, Paramount Plus queue, waiting for me to pick up where I left off. So yes, I definitely need to get on the ball with that. I get it. And to that end, as we are looking at coming up on the top of the hour, because once again, I have famously gone off on these amazing tangents because I have new people. And I love new people. And Jean, I hope you had a good time. And I would love to see you here again next week when I will be talking art and Star Trek with Melissa Longo. She and I are just going to yip yap about whatever comes along. So Faith, please bring your Prodigy question, because love to hear about that. And then we can also we're going to discuss disco. We're going to discuss Prodigy. Again, I will definitely bring it around to Enterprise at some point. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot of DS9. Melissa knows more about it, obviously, than I do. So please, I have to apologize to everybody that is watching on YouTube. I did nothing different this week than I do every other week when I set up my YouTube. And yet somehow I'm getting these body messages sent to YouTube. So I absolutely apologize for that. Anybody that might be offended by the YouTube bots, I have no idea where that is coming from. I will definitely have to research that. But guys, as always, thank you for coming and hanging out. I will be sharing Robert's pictures on the Facebook page. Absolutely. Please remember to support the show. There's a couple different ways you can support it. You can click on over to my Patreon page. Just go to Patreon, NX7062. Become a patron. You can become a patron for as low as $1. And it's just a huge helps me bring you the show, helps me get to conventions so that I can ask celebrities your questions, all that fun stuff. If you want to just do a one-off, which you absolutely can, then my Teespring store, buy merch. I have amazing merch at my Teespring store. T-shirts, sweatshirts, as the weather gets colder. I'm thinking about getting myself another sweat jacket, but it's going to be my own sweat jacket, my NX7062 sweat jacket. The other thing you can do, because Teespring was such a pain in the ass setting up hats, I went to punkarmy.net. Punk Army, that's Raymond Lister. He is Chase Masterson's right-hand guy, so we are supporting his punkarmy.net. They are our merch company. He was so cool, and he made me a hat. So if you head on over to punkarmy.net/products/NX7062, you will see my official baseball hat for the show. So there are so many different ways for you to support the show, and I appreciate anything that you guys can do. Domestic, thank you so much for saying that. I always appreciate that. Thank you so much. I love being here. Thank you so much for your support. I will tell Podcat, I will absolutely give Podcat your best. Travis, no apologies. Everybody has got stuff to do, so I totally get it. So thank you all, as always, for coming and hanging out with me. Come see me and Melissa next week. Can't wait to be chatting with all things Star Trek with Melissa. And until then, just remember, live long and prosper.
This is Nicole DeBoer, and you've been listening to the NX7062 podcast.